The Berwyn Mountains incident, very, very interesting because it's often been described as Britain's Roswell, in that there's some people who believe that something crashed into the mountain that night. This is in January 1974. And some people believe that it was a real UFO like at Roswell, that the government removed it and it's been kept secret ever since. What we actually know from these papers now, we can see the original documentation, and what appears to have happened is there was a massive explosion that was heard in the Welsh valleys in North Wales. People sort of heard this and thought there'd been an air crash, and lots of people rushed outside. This is late at night, one night in January. While they were milling around in the streets and looking up in the sky, they could see all these bizarre lights flying through the sky, you know, green fireballs, they were described as, some of them. And of course, people linked the two things together. They called the police went up on the mountain, searched, couldn't find anything. RAF Valley Mountain Rescue Team went out, flew over the area, no sign of an impact. So it was all a bit of a mystery. A couple of days later, it was confirmed that the actual explosion didn't come from the sky, it came from under the ground because it was a mini earthquake that had been registered on the Richter scale. And bizarrely, shortly after this earthquake, there was a meteor shower. So astronomers had seen these meteors. So it was just one of those things where everything comes together and creates a UFO legend. But what had actually happened was there'd been an earthquake, people had gone outside, looked in the sky and seen these lights, and they were actually pieces of rock from outer space that were burning up. So there is a factual basis to the story, in the same way that with the Roswell incident, the original Roswell incident, something happened. Even the American Air Force admit that something happened. It's just that they say it was a secret balloon test, and the people who believe in aliens think it was a cover-up of a crash flying saucer.
I mean, why do you think Wales is such a hotbed for UFO?
I guess it's because it's got the sort of like, you know, it's got the sort of Celtic legends, you know, all the stories about dragons and that kind of thing. You know, Wales is absolutely rich with that kind of folklore. And, you know, it's also got sort of areas like the Berwyn Mountains that are quite remote. So there's the idea that perhaps something could crash there and it could be successfully covered up. A lot more difficult to do that if it was central London, for instance. You know, so I think it's got that sort of romantic, sort of remote image, which seems to attract these kinds of stories.
Do they come in peace? Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 alien close encounters in Britain. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're looking at the weirdest and most compelling alien and UFO sightings from around the UK. Number 10, Diamond in the Sky. In 1990, two hikers outside the small village of Calvine, Scotland, made history with one of the most convincing UFO photos ever taken. However, bizarrely, this photo was allegedly covered up in the 1990s by the Ministry of Defence, which apparently had a one-man department investigating UFOs for a number of years. Before the existence of this department was even public knowledge, the photo of a large diamond-shaped object did the rounds of various intelligence organizations before vanishing forever. Only a reconstruction of the supposed image remains. Number 9. The Berkshire Rugby Ball. Nobody expects a rugby ball to come flying at them when they're piloting an Airbus 34,000 feet over Berkshire but that's apparently what happened to one unlucky pilot. Only 20 miles away from Heathrow Airport, the pilot was convinced this mysterious object was going to crash right into the cockpit. He even ducked. It was reported to the authorities as a near miss in 2014, and an investigation was launched, ultimately with no results. To this day, there's no explanation for what exactly he saw. Number 8. Todmorden UFO Incident. Hypnosis has been known to work wonders for alleged abductees. It certainly did when it was used on PC Alan Godfrey after a close encounter in 1980. He clearly recollected a craft the size of a bus in the northern village of Todmorden. After various calls from the public who were concerned about a herd of cows escaping, presumably spooked by the ship, a stranger named Joseph supposedly took Godfrey aboard, where a number of little creatures, or robots, examined him. Several other officers and a lorry driver also claimed to have seen something similar, adding credibility to his account. Number 7. The Dudley Dorito. The Midlands' most famous alien spaceship, the Dudley Dorito, has been sighted many times in recent years. Not only have there been eyewitnesses, but some of them have even managed to photograph or film the mysterious shape. The object gets its name from the area where it appears and its triangular shape, looking like a big crisp in the sky with a few bright lights to boot. For at least a decade, it's plagued the skies, roughly 5 times the size of a jumbo jet, and people are still at a loss for explanations. Number 6. The Copper Man. The oldest alien incident on our list occurred throughout the 18th and 19th centuries in and around Portsmouth, where a mysterious entity, retroactively called the Copper Man, was repeatedly sighted. While only really known to locals, this story of a human with metal skin, first recorded in 1798, is incredibly weird. A young maid even saw the man with metal flesh walk out of the sea and then go back in again, disappearing. But this frightening creature hasn't been seen at all since 1801. Number 5. The Stanmore Saucer. When police were called out to a woman's house late one evening in 1984 because she claimed to have seen a UFO, they presumably didn't expect to also be faced with the object in question. However, when they arrived, the mysterious craft was still visible overhead and stuck around long enough that they had a chance to do a rough sketch of it. The RAF also reported not having any planes in the sky that evening. As the story goes, the police even attempted, unsuccessfully, to follow it down the M1. Number 4. Ilkley Moor alien sighting. On a cold evening in 1987, retired policeman Phil Spencer was out for a walk on Ilkley Moor, Yorkshire, on his way to visit family. He also had an idea to take photographs of strange lights he'd seen on the moors, but definitely got more than he bargained for. He saw a strange being, took a photo, and chased it back to a UFO, which quickly took off. The photo was then analysed by optical physicist and ufologist Dr. Bruce Maccabee. The conclusion was that it had not been edited and the creature was no known animal. Number 3. The Envoy. The Ministry of Defence may have acted shadily on occasion, but in this instance, they apparently didn't think anything of a strange man claiming to be an envoy for an extraterrestrial diplomat who wanted to speak to the authorities. The man said he'd been in contact with aliens, specifically an alien named Algar, since he was age 7, and that Algar was finally ready to reveal himself publicly. Unfortunately, before this could happen, Algar was supposedly killed by some other aliens. The MOD never chased it up. We can kind of understand why though, it does make for quite the story. Number 2. The Falkirk Triangle. When you think of the UFO capital of the world, the first thing that springs to mind probably isn't the village of Bonnybridge, Scotland, also nicknamed the Falkirk Triangle. But it's this area's claim to fame ever since sightings began in 1992. For whatever reason, aliens seem drawn to this patch of land between Falkirk, Stirling, and Bonnybridge. though skeptics believe that it's all a scheme by a local politician, Billy Buchanan, to attract tourists. But there's still hundreds of reports of strange lights and objects in the night sky. Number 1. The Rendlesham Forest Incident. So significant it's nicknamed Britain's Roswell, what happened at Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk in 1980 has baffled people for decades. Centering on an airbase RAF Woodbridge over a few nights at the end of December, many high-ranking officials claimed to see a UFO come down in the woods. Personnel went on to investigate and found a glowing metal object that left burn marks behind. The incident spooked so many people that the MOD were forced to issue a public statement that national security was not at risk.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo UK and subscribe for more great content.